Welcome back to the Blade Lab. This is a momentous day, or not so much. In any case, it's going to be this channel's first official knife review. So exciting. It may seem like an odd choice if you're familiar at all with my tastes in knives or my collection, which you are not. But I tend to collect a not custom knives, but sort of higher end knives than this, which is a I would call it a budget knife. People have different definitions of what budget means, but this knife costs $55. It's available on Amazon. The name of the knife is the Rhino. It comes in what you see here, which is the black micarta black wash blade. It's 14C28N. It has a steel deep carry pocket clip, which works very well. It has anodized, in this case, blue titanium pivot collars. It is a steel construction. It has steel liners, which are pretty much flush with the micarta. The blade is it has blade pockets and studs for deployment. It also has a front flipper, which works, but it's not especially great. It's not super comfortable. It's a little sharp, and you don't get a whole bunch of torque off of it, but it works. Studs work great, going either way. The blade pocket can be flipped off of. The Amazon description of it is Remette EDC pocket knife Rhino, 3.15 inch, unique 14C28N blade, button lock open folding knife, durable micarta handle with pocket clip, gift for men, women, sharp work hiking camping knives. So, I don't know, there's really not much to add to that, is there? So, what else can I say? Oh, I should mention that the pocket clip is not reversible, but they've done a nice job of it. It's inset into the scale, and the screws are also inset, so really easy in and out of pocket. So why am I choosing this particular knife as my first official knife review on YouTube? Well, it's because of the lock. You can see it's a button lock, but it's not a plunge lock like we're familiar with. 99% of button locks you're going to see are like the Pyrite, the CJRB Pyrite, which is an extremely popular knife. And if you look inside there, you'll see this plunge mechanism, which, let's see if I can line it up. So this is what's basically stopping the blade from closing. And when you push the button, it pushes that little plunger in and allows the blade to close. Now that's all well and good. It's very fidgety, but did you see that there? A lot of button locks have that issue. The other thing is, a lot of button locks, and I'm not jamming on the Pyrite here, but because this applies to almost every button lock, but they don't have much in the way of like a real detent, because there is no detent ball. There's no hole in the blade tang that the ball slips into, as with liner locks and frame locks and compression locks. Which brings us back to Mr. Rhino. This knife does not have a plunge lock. It is a button actuated liner lock, if you can see that. So when you push the button, what it's actually doing is pushing the liner out of the way. So it's just like any liner lock, except instead of having to use your thumb to push it over and then giving you the potential to bring the blade down on your thumb, you can depress the liner just by pushing this button. So then it comes down, and because it has a D10 ball and an actual liner, it has more of a snappy detent than any plunge lock button type lock. So it's pretty unusual, especially in a knife in this price category. It's the only one I've actually seen under, say, $200 that has this mechanism. And there aren't that many even when you go up in price. You know, I think the original, as far as I know, the original was the Smok by Spyderco, and it may have even been on the original custom knife. I just don't know, so I shouldn't say. But so the Smok was a production version of a custom knife by a man named Smok, and it had this type of mechanism, you know, the button actuated liner lock. So very cool knife. I've never actually handled one, but I've you know, seen videos about it and seen pictures and whatnot. We'll have to try it out sometime. But you know, that knife costs, I think, a little over $200, and so roughly, you know, 4 times the cost of this knife. Other knives that have similar type mechanisms, one is a way more expensive knife, which is the Brown Knives FSD and FSD Mini, which is what this one is. So I don't think Mr. Brown would appreciate me saying that that it's a similar mechanism, because he calls it the Brown lock, and it's it's a little bit different when you get in there, but it is essentially, when you get down to brass tacks, it is a liner lock that's actuated with a button. Other knives that have the mechanism would be Vosteed has a knife that just came out fairly recently called the RS Chaos, RSKAOS. There's one upcoming by Golden Design Works, whose name escapes me, but and that's a little bit different because that's a button actuated frame lock. So that looks like it's going to be a very cool knife. So yeah, that's what drew me to this knife, and I think it's what makes it interesting. If you want to check out a new budget knife, I think this is one you might want to look at. Let's talk about the feel in hand and whatnot. So the micarta is a decent quality. It's not super soft. It's not super hard. It's kind of in between. It's kind of roughly smooth. It's smooth-ish, shall we say? But it still provides, you know, pretty decent grip, more so than you know, if it was metal or some other materials. The action, which we've been talking about a little bit, is excellent. You know, it's pretty much drop shut. You can also, you know, actuate it with the button like a regular button lock. Like I said, the front flipper is a little uninspiring, but it's you know, if you like to front flip occasionally, it's there. The blade itself is, as I said, 3.15 inches long, 14C28N, which is an excellent, very tough budget steel. It doesn't have the greatest edge retention, but it's very tough, and the edge retention is fine, especially if you. This is not the factory edge that was on it. I've knocked it down. I've done some other tests on it, so it was at 12 degrees, and then I've just put a 15-degree edge on it today. So I was doing some edge retention testing. In the at 12 degrees, it didn't do quite as well as a Civivi knife, also at 12 degrees in 14C28N. So I wanted to see if maybe it would do better at a higher, but still a reasonable angle. And it did. I compared it to another knife, made by Kubi in 14C28N, and this one actually performed, in terms of the best score after the testing, it performed a little bit better than the similar Kubi knife. One thing is odd though, is that even though the edge tested a little better at the end, I found it the actual cutting was more difficult with this one, and that may be because the Kubi I was testing had a hollow grind, but something to keep in mind. But it'll cut perfectly fine for EDC tasks. It is pretty thin behind the edge for a budget knife. This is not going to be indicative of what it was brand new, but as it sits here, it is, let me see if I can, this is always tricky. Yeah, it's, I don't know if you can see that, it's about 18 thousandths behind the edge now, which is pretty good considering how many edges I put it on it and how kind of low the angles were. I should have a record of what it was when I got it. Let me look if I can find that real quick. Yeah, so it was 14 thousandths of an inch behind the edge out of the box, which is good to go. It's a good score. The factory edge was not anything to write home about, but it was okay. It was a 275 best. So you might want to put your own edge on it. And the edge angle out of the box was 22 degrees on one side and 25 on the other side. So pretty high angle. That accounts in part for the not so great best score. And it's not, yes, the angles were slightly different. That's very common in my experience in new knives, even from higher end makes. So let's just wrap this up pretty quickly. I don't want to keep you all day. Let's do a just size comparison. So here it is next to a Spyderco PM2. Let's see, the PM2 is obviously larger. We'll throw in a Benchmade bug out. They are about the same size. The bug out is, well, those are they're almost exactly the same size as the bug out. The Remette is considerably thicker. Let me just take a quick look at that. So the bug out is a very thin knife, so you can kind of see how they stack up in that direction. And since I have them out here, we'll compare it to the CJRB Pyrite. And sorry for this, Mr. Brown, the Brown FSD Mini. It's kind of in between. It's slightly bigger than the Pyrite, but essentially the same size, and definitely smaller than the FSD Mini if you're thinking about deciding between these two knives, which you're probably not. Oh my god, this knife has absolutely insane action. Anyway, that's not what we're here about. So that's going to wrap up my first knife review. I'm sure I probably forgot something that I was supposed to talk about. But yeah, it's the Remette Rhino. I will put a link to it in the description. I do not have any association with Remette or Amazon or anyone else for that matter. I buy all this stuff with my own money. Should that change, which would be nice, I will. You will be the first ones to know, and it won't change my my objectivity. I promise you that. So until the next time, y'all have a good one. Take care.